What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. I really need an intro song for this. I really, really do. How's everybody doing this evening? It is Monday. Man, I'm not sure and I can't prove it, but I think it might rain outside. I saw some dark clouds coming in and it looks a lot like it wants to rain. I don't know, but man, it looks really, really cloudy outside here in Sharon area where I live. It is a wee bit cloudy. Actually, in the process, I filmed a bunch of videos this weekend. I filmed a ton of videos this weekend, and man, I just gotta get to editing soon. I will spend so much time editing and making videos and stuff, and then I come home and I think I have probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 different videos that I need to upload that I just haven't yet. It's been crazy busy lately, guys, and I appreciate everybody being along for the ride with me. We've got a ton of stuff that we've gotten done over the last week and a half. Some top secret stuff that I'm not going to tell anybody about yet. But it's been a lot of fun. We got our onions planted. I spent a large amount of time this weekend uh getting my onions ready, getting them planted because man, it's just I wanted to. I haven't really spent a whole bunch of time growing onions, so I wanted to make sure that I do it right. And like I said, if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it right. So I did the research and I got the right varieties, and I wanted to try some varieties that I've never tried before, and it's gonna be a fun experiment. Like I said in my video, if you haven't seen it already, go watch it. It's live on Facebook and YouTube as well. God, I'm importing. Oh my God, I'm importing videos to my computer right now from my memory card. There's 314 videos that I've got to clip together. It's gonna be crazy. So that just means a lot of content coming your way. A lot of content coming your way. Um, I had a lot of problems with garlic in the past. I did store-bought garlic. Why does it always say 1028? Is it 1020? Okay, I missed it last time. That's what it was. Oh yeah. 200, yeah, 155, 156 gigs. It's gonna take 30 minutes for all that to upload. Oh my God. Jeez. But yeah, a lot of content coming your way. Let's see. I had a hard time growing garlic a couple years ago because I don't have like a lot of room. I don't have a lot of room in my yard. Y'all seen my backyard. I don't have a whole lot of room just laying around to plant something that can just sit there and take up space for 6 to 8 months. So now that I got kind of a surplus of beds and I'm not planting as many tomatoes probably next year, at least in those beds, I figured, well, let's do a bunch of onions and do a bunch of garlic. And so the garlic I did, I think 4 out of the 7 are soft neck varieties, and then 3 of them are hard neck varieties. And the reason you go with like a hard neck variety is, well, hard neck varieties are usually grown further north because they're more cold tolerant. Soft neck varieties are going to do better, usually typically better down south. One of them is even called Texas Rose. One of them is called Sonoran. So it's like from like the desert in Mexico. That's where they grow that garlic. So I've got, including the elephant garlic, I got 6 or 7 varieties of garlic growing in the garden. Because the last time I grew garlic, we had the polar vortex, and a bunch of my garlic that's supposed to be cold tolerant and died. It just didn't make it. So I'd kind of given up on it because they wasted a bunch of my time and a bunch of space where I got to put more, cabbage or stuff like that. So kind of haven't messed with garlic in 2 or 3 years now. But I decided, since I was going to try carrots again, I was going to try growing some other stuff. I'll hold off on telling you all that yet. That I would try onions and garlic again. So I've got a 15-foot bed. Let's just hold off on telling you exactly what I did because the video is coming. The video is coming. I will probably have a lot of it edited this week. But I'm wore out. Well, I am pretty wore out. We had a meetup at Jorge's Hidden Gardens on Saturday, which was a great turnout. I had a really good turnout. The I didn't do the best planning of that event. I could have planned it out a lot better. Usually, whenever we do like a meetup at Jorge's, we'll typically set a certain time to where we're going to do like the nursery walkthrough. And if you don't know what a nursery walkthrough is, you've never been to one of our meetups. We'll start like at the front of the nursery and then walk through, go through all the sections. And if people have questions, they want to talk about certain varieties or whatever, we'll stop and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A. And this time of year is like the best time to plant fruit trees. I mean, maybe not today. I mean, it was pretty warm today. It looks like it's gonna be warm for the rest of the week. But fall is typically the best time to plant your trees. So we focused on fall tree planting. And the reason it's so advantageous to plant it in the fall, a lot of people will plant their stuff in the spring. They'll go, they get excited for the spring. They go out and they get some vegetables and they get some fruit trees. When you go and you plant that fruit tree in the ground in the spring, and it goes from 80 degrees in March and April, and then it's 100 degrees in June and July. And so that tree will typically get pretty stressed out and shocked if it's not watered in well enough and the roots don't have time to establish fully and mature. So if you plant them in the fall, dealing with a cooler temperatured winter, our winters are typically a little bit wetter too. So, I have no water as much. The plant's not stressed out as much. So, typically, most fruit trees, most shade trees here in the Houston area are going to do better if you plant them in the fall. So that's what we focused on. And we had a pretty good turnout. Jorge was doing some sales on his peaches and nectarines and stuff like that. So had a really good, sold a lot of trees. Got a lot of people, set up for their first orchard. So it was really exciting. But man, we had a really good time. And so I was wore out after that, and I came home and I got busy. I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to do, getting the onions and garlic and stuff planted, and a bunch of other stuff that I can't talk about yet because the video hasn't came out yet. But just know there's a bunch of cool content that's going to come out soon. Let's see. Texas Nurse, I have really heavy clay soil. I've got some garlic to plant. What do you think is the best type of container and planting medium to use? That's a great question. So I've seen garlic planted in a bunch of different ways. It's a fairly easy crop to grow. Garlic and onions in general are very easy crop to grow. They're just time consuming. A lot of people just don't have the patience, or they don't have the space. Like I didn't have the space to just dedicate an entire bed or certain containers. Now I'm kind of laying back a little bit more. You would say I've gotten more beds, so I'm able to kind of be more laid back gardening and have some areas where I'm gonna say, you know what, we're gonna top this bed off. We're gonna let it sit for 6-8 months. So I would say a large container. You could probably get away with planting, some garlic in a 5-gallon bucket. You could do that if it's, well draining soil and it's deep enough. You won't be able to do much because typically you want to space it like 2 to 3 inches apart. Have like give like 2 or 3 inches of space to grow, and then you want it to be about 2 inches deep. So a 5-gallon bucket is probably like the minimum size. Um, Here we go. We're buffering. Uh, I would recommend maybe one of these smart pots. These fabric pots are fairly inexpensive. I moved them all to the garage, but I've got some of these fabric pots, and they're really pretty usable. I'm doing some of the elephant garlic in those smart pots. I'm gonna see how that works out. The mineral tubs are great. I have a ton of mineral tubs. I always say if you whatever you have, use it. You don't have to go out and buy something if you don't need it, right now. If you want to expand and get, upgrade later on, go ahead. But like if you have buckets or mineral lake tubs, use that stuff first. I didn't have metal raised beds. People who've been watching my stuff for a while or have known me for a while knows that, I got started pretty much growing almost exclusively in mineral lake tubs because my dad is over in, Matagorda area, and he's got a ton of cows. He goes through a lot of mineral lake tubs. The one thing I will say is that typically the light blue and the white, the real brittle ones, do not hold up very well under UV stress from being out in the sun. The white ones, they're like almost clear translucent, and the light blue ones will typically crack and break pretty easily. If you can, go with like the black ones because they're more UV resistant, and the red ones and the green ones, I believe, are more UV resistant. If you can bend it and like push it in and it doesn't crack and it's not brittle, that's what I would go with. Um, it seems like the white ones and the uh, blue ones are made out of the same material like a 5 gallon bucket is, and that stuff will break down pretty quickly over time. Those black ones have held up. I've got mineralic totes out there. The black ones have held up. You know, there's some that are 7 years old, some that I've had for literally 7 years and have not broken apart on me. Like they have not broken down. The black ones, typically, that's why they make nursery pots, black, because they're typically UV resistant. So yeah, go with the black ones if you have them. And if you go on Facebook Marketplace, I know a lot of people do this now. They go on Facebook Marketplace. You used to be able to get them for free from people. They used to be able to get them for free from people, from farmers or ranchers. But I think they caught on, so people were using them instead of having to pay money for nursery pots and planters and stuff. And so now, I mean, you can look at probably getting one on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist for anywhere between $5 and $10. What kind of dirt do you recommend to put in containers, layer by layer? So I don't use dirt; I use soil. So the difference between this is a snobby thing to say, a snobby term. I don't know. I used to hate when people say this stuff, but dirt, when you talk about like horticulturally or like what is it? What do they call it when it's the soil science? Uh, soil is alive, dirt is dead. You know what I mean? So soil is a living thing, and it's got it's I call fill dirt potting soil. Think about it like that. So what I've been using lately in my raised bed is on the bottom of my raised beds or containers, I will typically use either a mulch as like filler, like a fine mulch as like a filler, or I've even used like pine bark chunks to fill up like the bottom third, depending on how deep the container is. Like we're talking about these 17-inch tall metal raised beds I've got. I'll maybe go in a 17-inch container. I'll maybe go 6 inches of like mulch just to kind of be filler. I wouldn't go with a log or big stick kind of thing. I know permaculture and hugelculture are kind of the words have been used for a while, but I've done beds, and especially shallower beds with logs and sticks and stuff. It takes a long time to break stuff down like that. It'll take quite a while. So I would avoid that in like a shallow container. If you're doing a big container, like a 31-inch container, yeah, fill the first half with lumber or whatever you want. Not, I wouldn't use lumber, obviously, but logs or whatever you want to use. Just know that if you do something like that, it's gonna sink. If you're doing a raised bed or container, just in general, your soil levels are going to sink as soon as you start watering, because once you start watering, you're flushing that soil into every nook and cranny, that those logs will leave behind, or the sticks and the mulch will leave behind. So just be cautious of that, of what you're putting in there. So try to pack it in and shake it or whatever you want to do to try to get all those nooks and crannies filled in. And then what I've been doing lately is I'll do that mulch, and then I will do probably a layer of compost, and then a layer of rose soil. And I've been using Living Earth. I've been using Living Earth products lately, especially like the compost, the garden soil, and the rose soil. Really like rose soil. It's really nice, especially for the vegetables that I'm planting right now, which are like the carrots and the onions. You're going to want like a sandier, loamy soil. You don't want as much like, I don't know, like when you go to like towards the top, I'm not doing like a big chunky mix. I'd rather have, some carbonaceous material, but I want it to be more sandy to allow for good drainage and allow those root vegetables to sink. And then what I do right after I do this, I'm not going to plant immediately. I'll typically go through and I will water for like a couple of days. I'll go through water really heavy. And you can even do this as you're doing the layers, is you can kind of water as you go. That way that moisture is penetrating the whole bed. Because the first couple of days you go ahead and water, and it's going to be sinking, and the dry layers are going to be sucking that water down. And so you really want to water it in heavy, especially if you're going to plant something like carrots or radishes or whatever. I did that with from a tip from my buddy Jeremy Trosky over at Dirty Punk Gardening, and I had a huge. I'm having a really good success rate with carrots and radishes right now because I watered really heavy. But I broad forked my old material, I loosened it up, and then I watered really heavy before I seeded it, and then I covered everything up with a thin layer, and then I watered again to really get those seeds moist and germinated, and it worked really, really well. And then if I need to, after a couple of days, I will probably go back and top that soil again and then plant what I need to plant. Hey, I stumbled upon your channel. What's going on, Miss Mikey? Very interesting to find another gardener here in the Houston area. What are your thoughts on permaculture? Yeah, permaculture is cool. I don't know. I've heard the term permaculture, but I don't know the exact definition. Let's look up the exact definition of permaculture. It has to do with like like building your own ecosystem, right? Yeah. So permaculture, the definition of it is the development of agriculture ecosystems intended to be sustainable and self-sufficient. So, it's talking like building like your own little homestead, your own little self-sustaining little system. So, I mean, that's like water collection, you're having pollinator plants built into your garden, and trellis systems that are multifunction. I would say I do function on a permaculture level to some extent. I'm a little bit space limited, but I feel like I do a lot with what I have. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. Permaculture is I think I've sustained myself a little bit. I obviously could do more. I think we could all do more. I'd love to have like a rainwater collecting system. It's typically it rains so much here in Houston that I don't really need it. But yeah, I mean, I don't compost as much as I'd like, just because I don't have the space to add like compost or like a big pile. But I do the best I can. I don't know if I'm fully permaculture though. I mean, I'm sure you can do it on a smaller scale like I'm at, like fully permaculture, but it's just I don't know, terms are hard. I would never want to label myself as permaculture. Hi, we have a peach tree that came with our home. It's currently in a huge clay pot. It produces leaves, but not fruit. We have had it for 2 years. Small tree. I'm not sure what we're doing wrong. We can't plant it because we have a ton of limestone and can't break the ground. That's a great question. So I'm in a subdivision that has basically black gumbo soil. Like the water doesn't drain. Like the soil does not drain. The water doesn't go, and it's terrible. So not only that, but I have utility lines on rounding my entire yard. So it's really hard to find a spot when 811 came out, when they scanned my yard, to even find somewhere where I can dig a hole. So the benefit of what I'm doing is I'm using let's see. Well, let's start over. Let's start from the beginning with that. So your peach tree, you've had it in terracotta pot. It came with the house. Had it for 2 years. It's not producing fruit. So first of all, you can grow peach trees in containers, and you can get fruit. Most peach trees will produce peaches by themselves, but it's hard to get a good pollination rate. Most people would recommend, like most agricultural professionals would tell you, that you need 2 different varieties of peaches, 2 different kinds of apples, 2 different kinds of nectarines or whatever, 2 of that kind of fruit. For cross pollination, you want 2 different varieties that bloom around the same time of year, so that they will cross pollinate and or pollinate each other. So if you have one peach tree, there's a chance you could get some fruit, but it's, I don't know, not great. But if it's been in a huge clay pot, I have to see the size of the huge clay pot. I don't know if it's on the ground or if it's on the concrete or what, but stuff like that's going to have a big taproot. And if you haven't moved that container in a while and it's in the grass, chances are the roots have probably already grown to the bottom. If you've had a peach tree in a big terracotta pot and it's in the grass and you haven't moved it around a lot, there's a chance that the tap roots are probably growing through the bottom into that drainage hole, which is okay. The problem is those roots are going to get really thick. And I've had this happen where a plant will actually, their roots will swell so big that they clog the drainage holes, and then your plant will just drown in its own water. Like, it just won't drain. So If it's been in a big terracotta pot and you can't pull it out, chances are you might have to break that terracotta pot just to get that tree out. But good news is what you can do is what I'm doing with my figs and my pomegranates and some other stuff I'm not going to talk about yet. And I've got these Vigo garden rings, and you could do this with just like a plastic culvert or however you wanted, these are 17-inch tall, 24-inch wide rings, metal rings. And what I do is I literally will put them together, set them up against the fence, kind of in a where place I want them. And then I will literally put the tree into the ring and I plant it just like that above ground. So if you have limestone, that's fine. You don't need to, you should be okay. You can just plant it on top of the soil, stake it, plant and, fill it up, fill the soil up, plant it into that ring, and it'll be on top of the soil and where the water will drain. So that's why mine are doing really well now. Because like I said, I can't plant them in the ground, but I can plant them on top of the ground and let those roots travel as they need to, and they can take their time. And honestly, there's a good chance that like when I leave, I might be able to dig some of those trees up. I just need to flip them, and I might be able to flip them up. But I'd love to learn more. I'd love to learn more about your situation, T. If you go to my Instagram page, send me a picture. If y'all ever have questions about certain things, I don't always get back the fastest on Instagram, but you can send me a DM. Don't DM me on Facebook. Facebook Messenger is weird. But if you do have questions, send me pictures on Instagram. I hope that helps a little bit. Hey, Jay, I'm a gardener from Pasadena, Texas, and I have a big serrano pepper plant and a jalapeno plant. What are your thoughts on overwintering pepper plants? That's a great question, Jay. So when it comes to overwintering pepper plants, I've had pretty decent success overwintering them. And I don't know if these are in containers right now or if they're in like a raised bed or in the garden, like in the ground or in a raised bed or whatever. And when do you recommend overwintering? Okay. So I've had peppers that I overwintered that were in the containers they were in. I actually started growing my peppers almost specifically in containers so that I could overwinter them. Because typically, the hotter the pepper, if you're looking to grow peppers, the hotter the pepper, the longer it takes to grow. So you may have started some Scotch bonnets or some ghost peppers from seed, and they're just now here in the Houston area, almost a year later, putting out some fruit, and you don't want to start over next year. So you can go ahead and you can prune back that pepper plant. You can prune it back if it's in a raised bed, and you can dig it up. You just want to go probably twice as wide as the canopy of the pepper and try to get those roots up. You can pop them up bare root and repot them in soil, but I would try to keep the root ball together with soil, and you can transplant it to another pot. And then you can put it in a shady spot, let it recover. And then when it starts to really get cold, start getting like in the 40s, you can either put that in the greenhouse or you can put it in in your windowsill. You can bring it in the garage, and you can get grow lights. You can get grow lights now. You can get like some literally they make ones that go like in a lamp, and you can just like a bulb, and you can put your plants in the garage. And then when you leave for work, turn it on. When you get home from work, turn it off. And hopefully it'll just stay dormant or kind of grow a little bit during the winter time. You water it a little bit, but they'll typically go a little bit dormant. But I've had peppers that will actually overwinter. I've had them in the greenhouse and I've had them in the garage and overwinter. My buddy Jeremy Trotsky, he will pot them into like a 1-gallon pot and he puts them in his basement in Ohio, and he's had pretty good luck. When I say pretty good luck, I've had about a 50% success rate, and I've heard people have better success rates than that. So you're looking at least a 50-50 shot. That's my opinion. And I would wait until, because your peppers are probably producing right now, try to get as many as you can and save some of them seeds. Save some of that seeds and start some of them in the spring just to be safe. You always want to cover your butt, so I would wait until we're going to get like in the 40s, and then I would cut it back. Let's see. Space is limited here too. I do a lot of chop and drop. I agree with you regarding your gardening style. Thanks for your response. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Overwintering is great. Hot peppers do so much better second year. Can't wait to hear what Texas Garden Guy says. Though. Yeah, no, it's very easy to overwinter peppers. I've had, like I said, I've had success. I've had people that have really good success. You just, you know, if you can keep your peppers in containers, peppers will keep in bigger containers. You can keep a pepper in a 15-gallon pot for a couple of years, and then you don't have to worry about transplanting it or anything like that. Just leave it in the pot. That'd be my best recommendation. Is if you're going to grow peppers, keep them in pots. Uh, Jen Heath, would my plumerias and desert roses survive the winter in a greenhouse outside on my 8x10 wood deck? That's a good question. So your wood deck is gonna probably have, unless you have something on the bottom that will seal it up too, because usually wood decks are gonna have like gaps. So wind flow is a problem. Wind flow is gonna be a problem coming up and underneath and probably blowing your greenhouse away. So you probably want these on a south facing part of your yard, and you'd want it maybe up against the house. If you have a brick house, it's even better to put like that greenhouse up against the bricks on a south facing side of the house, because those bricks are going to retain heat. If the sun is hitting the bricks, it's going to absorb heat all day long, and it's going to slowly dissipate it throughout the day, throughout the evening. So if you put it on the south facing side of the house, I would add some T-posts and cattle panels, but I wouldn't put it on your wooden deck. I would probably put it like on the ground, because you have to worry about the wind flow coming up and underneath. I don't think I'd put it on a wooden fence. But your plumerias, yes. Your plumerias, I've had plumerias outside, and I don't recommend this to everybody because I don't want you to lose your plumerias, but I've had plumerias outside in like 35-degree weather, and they've been okay. I'll lose some leaves here and there, but I wouldn't recommend that, but I have had plumerias outside in like 35-degree weather, and they've been okay. But desert roses are another story. I would not have my desert roses out in the greenhouse. They're typically small enough to where if you have like an insulated garage, I would bring them inside. I'd bring those desert roses inside in the garage. I'm gonna put some of my plumerias in the greenhouse, but I'm not gonna put my desert roses in the greenhouse just because I'm nervous. Um, the other day when it dropped down to 49 here, they said it was going to drop to 50, so I went ahead and I made 4 trips bringing my desert roses from the backyard into the garage, because when it gets to 50 or below, your desert roses, if they have seed pods or they have blooms, they will drop their seed pods and blooms if it gets to 50 or below. And then you got to think about wind chill. Don't always worry about like what temperature it says is going to be. You need to go check out and see what the wind chill is going to be, because the other day it said a 50-degree wind chill or 50-degree weather, but then low of 42 wind chill. And that's a real concern. That's what you really need to worry about. There's even people who have like, cold hardy plants. Like it might be cold hardy down to like the temperature, but if you got them outside and they're in a pot, that's not the same thing as them being cold hardy in the ground with established roots. You really need to think about that. You really need to think about, what's going to survive this in a container, because when people say like, oh, this plant is cold tolerant down to 10 degrees or 40 degrees or 20 degrees, that means in the ground with mature established roots. That does not mean in a metal container. When the wind blows around a metal container, it's like a air conditioner, like a radiator. It's just going to get cold, 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 and just destroy those roots with the cold weather. So you just want to be careful to pay attention to not only the temperature, but the wind chill and the wind speeds. Yeah, they're over 5 feet tall and running out of space in the garage. Jen, if you're in the Houston area, we are still fairly warm, and so it is not too late. I'm going to be doing it. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I need to cut back some of my plumerias. It's not too late to cut them back. We had the plumeria papa on 2 weeks ago, I think, and he was saying that whenever you cut a plumeria back, you cut it at an angle. When you cut off the main stem, you cut it off at an angle, and then when you have the cutting, you cut that flush, you cut that flat. And so you take that and you add like maybe some cinnamon or I've even heard he said something about using like rooting hormone just to seal it up. But it's still warm enough here in the Houston area. We don't have like I pay a lot of attention to how the cold is coming in. And we're still gonna be like in the 70s and the 80s here in Houston for like the next week or two. So if you want to, and you've got your plumerias and you want to go do some pruning, it's not too late. Just make sure if it rains a bunch, you put those plumerias, the plants and the cuttings in a cool, dry spot. You don't want to go out there and cut your plumerias back and then have a bunch of rain. It just might lead some fungus and stuff like that. If you can, wait and do it in the spring. But if you absolutely need to, like I'm gonna have to, or some of mine won't fit in my greenhouse. It's 8 foot tall. Actually, my garage and my greenhouse are 8 foot tall, maxed out. So yeah. You're bringing yours in the garage. Then will they have enough sun? How long will you keep them in the garage? So I keep my desert roses in the garage when it starts like, steadily staying at about 50 or below. And I have grow lights and a big project is coming that I haven't even started yet that I need to get started. I'm basically going to be redoing my entire garage. And there's going to be a huge a grow house situation going on in my garage. There's gonna be new shelving systems, new lights. Yeah, it's gonna be a big operation where I pretty much have to pull everything out of my garage and then put a bunch of new stuff in there. And then yeah, it's gonna be an insane project, and I'll be recording the whole thing. So yeah, so I'll be on the lookout for that in the next month or two. It's going. I keep saying that, the fall and winter is going to slow down a little bit, but it never slows down, and that's okay. It's okay. There's worse hobbies to have than being a plant hoarder. But yeah, I keep my desert roses. I'll bring them in here and there when we have a little bit of cold snaps, until it's like steadily at 50 and below, like on a consistent basis. That's when I'll keep them in the garage. I have an insulated garage. My water heater's out there, so it helps keep it a little bit warmer too. I'll probably add some heat lamps, and then I will keep my desert roses under those grow lights. You don't have to do that. You can actually just put your desert roses into the garage with no sunlight, and they'll go dormant. They'll literally just go dormant. They'll drop their leaves, and they'll just go dormant. Same thing with your plumerias. You don't have to put them under grow lights. You can just bring them in. You don't have to keep them in the sun. You can just put them in the garage, or keep them above 40, 50 degrees, and they'll just go dormant over winter. My buddy Plumeria Papa was telling me, he goes, you want to pay attention to your plumerias and your desert roses, because if you start to see it like shriveling up, like really tight, like wrinkly, tightening, like loose, like shriveling up, you want to take like a spray bottle and go mist them, so they'll help it like maintain, because they will shrivel up and die, and like if you let them go too far. But you really don't have to go too crazy with it. Let's see. I missed a question here. Do you know anything about getting rid of mealy bugs? They're all over my hibiscuses, or do I chunk them? I had the worst infestation of mealy bugs I've ever had this year. It was a absolute nightmare. It was absolute nightmare. I lost 2 or 3 of my really nice hibiscuses. I lost my Space Oddity hibiscus, which was my favorite. Had a freaking flower. It was like that big and was crazy psychedelic colors. And I'll never get that hibiscus back. I'm so pissed off about it. But so is nature, So is nature. If you have it in the initial stages, something you can do is you can put some, I think it's hydrogen peroxide, on a rag or on a Q-tip, and you can rub it up against the mealy bugs. I had a huge infestation, so I could not do that. What I had to use was not very organic. I'm always open and honest with y'all. I made sure I went through and harvested all of the vegetables, everything I could eat, and then I had to use Malathion. I'm not proud of it, but hey, sometimes it's you or the pests, and it was the pests. The pests were eating me alive. There are some videos, if you go back and you watch my blueberry video, you can go back and watch my blueberry video, and it looks like it's snowing in my backyard. It literally looks like it's snowing in my backyard. If you go back and look, really pay attention, you'll see these little flecks of white floating around. Those were mealybugs. And it was like that going up my backyard every single day. And I tried everything I could think of. I tried neem oil, I tried insecticidal soap, I tried spinosad, I tried BT, like literally everything in my arsenal. I had to order Marathon, and I didn't like it. It smelled funky, and man, it was not great. But that was the only thing I found that worked. But I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. Mealy bugs, I've never had them before. Hopefully, I pray to God I never get them again. But I've been told systemic works better. I tried systemic and it didn't work for me. So I will probably do some more research over the winter and try to find a better protection against them. But the only thing I found to get rid of them was Marathon, and that didn't even really completely get rid of them. I still have them on my Texas sage right now. I still have them on my Texas sage, but when it cooled down and the temperature started cooling down, they started leaving. Like they started dying out. But you got to be careful about that too, because when that happens, sometimes they'll go dormant and they'll just lay their eggs in the mulch and you're down below your by the roots of the plant, and then when it warms back up, they just hatch and come back again. So I'll probably have to go through with another systemic systemic insecticide and take care of them. But I'll have to get with Dr. Ong with the plant clinic and find out what the best method for that is, because I don't want to have to deal with those again. It was bad. It was really bad. Like I said, if you go back and watch a couple of my videos around the time that the blueberry video came out, when I redid my blueberry bed, you can see when I was editing the video, I could see the mealybugs floating around. It looked like it was snowing or it was pollen or something. I always thought our coldest wind came from the north, but the east wind is really cold. I'm in Southwest Houston. Hey, I don't know. Cold wind is cold. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I am not a meteorologist, and even meteorologists can't predict what's really wrong. So shout out to Mike Iskovitz, though. I love Mike Iskovitz here in Houston, Fox 26. Let's see. What should I do with the huge seed pods on the plumerias if they don't open on their own before I absolutely have to put them in the garage? I'm in San Antonio. You could put them in the garage. You could if you have that greenhouse, like you were saying, you might be able to keep them. Somebody was telling me the other day that it can take up to 8 months for a plumeria seed pod to actually open up, which I've got one plant with some pods on it, and that one will for sure go in my greenhouse so that it can still keep going. I've got some of those organza bags that I stuck over them so that when they do open up, they don't fly off, they don't float off on me. But I don't know how that works. I don't know. I want to say I've seen them before whenever they stored them over winter without like grow lights and stuff. And I don't think the seed pods stayed viable. So for something like that, you probably have to keep them in the greenhouse and keep them actively growing. My dog is outside the door right now. He's asleep and he's dreaming and he's whimpering. He's so cute. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Long day, long weekend. We have a really, 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 really awesome episode of the garden party coming out Wednesday. I don't know if y'all saw the flyer for it come out already, but this is going to be the biggest episode of the garden party yet, because it is going to be, I think we have 6 or 7 people that are going to be on it. That's our spooktacular, our happy Halloween episode. And we're going to have Jeremy from Dirty Punk Gardening, Michael Fiore from Smith's Garden Town, Vikram, the plant prop. We're going to have Josh, the plant techie, Phil from Phil's Figs if he's not sick, and then Dez from Gardening with Dez. And I told everybody, I was like, for this episode of the garden party, the Halloween episode, I challenge everyone to dress like their favorite gardening content creator. So I've already gotten some pictures and some videos from people, and it is going to be really good. Yeah, and I told them if you have the time, which I'll be doing one of these, if you have the time, go ahead and video a skit or like recreate one of their videos and send it to me, and we'll premiere it live on the garden party. So I will obviously watch them beforehand to make sure there's nothing. And I also told everybody, I was like, hey, I was like, I know we're all going to be dressing like one of these other gardening content creators or farming content creators or whatever. I'm like, let's keep it positive. Let's keep it nice. Let's not be mean. So everything will be done tastefully. But on Wednesday on the garden party, it's going to be the Happy Halloween spooky spectacular or whatever version of the garden party. It's gonna be so much fun. So if y'all aren't already planning on being here for the garden party on Wednesday, make sure you're there. Yes, the garden party. It's every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We usually go for about an hour. Since I got so many people on, we're going to do it for an hour for 2 hours. We'll probably be on for 2 hours on Wednesday. Just so everybody has enough time to talk and whatever. We'll talk about fall gardening, winter gardening, but we'll also probably mess around a little bit. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I need to look up some Halloween garden trivia or something. But it's gonna be a really good time. It's gonna be a really good time. I'm really looking forward to it. So if you don't already, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Facebook and YouTube. It'll be live on Facebook and YouTube at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, Central Standard Time. So really looking forward to that. And then we got a bunch of cool episodes. I got some really cool episodes coming up of the garden party as well. We're gonna have Cog Hill back on. We're gonna be Tracy. Just Dig It is gonna come on soon. We got some good guests coming up. So if y'all aren't already, hanging out and watching these garden party episodes, we put a lot of time and effort. It was actually yesterday. Yesterday was actually Phil and I's it's anniversary. We've been doing the garden party for over a year now. Yesterday was the anniversary of the first episode of the garden party. So we've been doing it for over a year now, and I've been there every week. I've not missed 1 week, and so I'll keep doing them as long as we can. I made the comment about the wind because of your comment about the wind chill, even if the plant is in the south side. Oh yeah. Yes, yeah. You want to protect them from the wind chill regardless. Yeah. Wind chill regardless of the direction it's coming from. I think just gonna be careful. I mean, it's coming from the south, north, east, or whatever. If it's cold, it's gonna be blowing that cold air regardless. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't worry about the direction of the wind. I just worry about the wind. Even during the winter time, like whenever it's cold outside. I know my greenhouse will stand up to, it being cold outside. I just worry about the wind blowing my greenhouse away. I just worry about the wind. I'll sit out there. My wife will tell you that I go and I will literally stand at the window just watching the wind blow my greenhouse, is whipping it. When it's really windy in those winter storms, and it drives me nuts. I get nervous, like, oh God. So yeah, man, I have got so much to do. So much video to edit. I've got one more video in the Great Alabama Nursery Tour that I want to post and get out. I did a little thing at Fred Reyes. I just got so much I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off this a little bit early. Like I said, come hop on the garden party on Wednesday at 7 p.m. and hang out with me, Des, Phil, Josh, Jeremy, Michael, and Vikram for a little bit. It's going to be so much fun. We'll all be dressed up. And I'm not going to tell you who I'm dressing up as for Halloween, but I will say good day. So, all right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for hanging out with me. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the stream. And I'll see you on Wednesday. It's going to be a spooky time.